Okay, next up is our 5-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion, Jimmie Johnson. He drives the number 48 Lowe's Cobalt Tool Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. He's got 2 wins here at Darlington. Average finish is 9.3. That's pretty good. Jimmie, talk about racing here at Darlington. You've got that 1 win under your belt. You've moved up, obviously, in the points. You're up to 2nd. Been up there a couple weeks now. Talk about racing here at Darlington.
Yeah, I think that every driver, veteran or rookie coming in, is really excited to come to this racetrack and compete. With only running here once a year, I think there's more of a focus on trying to take a trophy out of here. It means so much to our series, to the drivers, competitors, the history of our sport, that we're all very excited to come here and compete. Things change a lot. This track, I'm eager to get onto it. You know, there's been so much grip since they've repaved it. I know there's a tire test and heard some mixed reports, so we're really not sure what to expect until we get out there. But one of my favorite tracks, along with a handful of other drivers, or I'd say a lot of other drivers, and we'll just get out there and let it rip here in practice today.
Take some questions. We'll start with Jenna and then go to David Caravella. Go ahead, Jenna.
Jenna Fryer, AP. I wanted to ask you about last week. You were pretty miserable for a long stretch of that race and still were able to, I'm not going to repeat your tweet, but you salvaged it. Yeah. How difficult is it to stay focused like that? Because last week in particular was a case of there were a few certain drivers who absolutely couldn't do that, and they sort of became unraveled and so went their day. So how is it that you were able to do that and pull that out?
Man, I was coming unraveled, and I guess we're all wired differently and have higher thresholds, but my fun meter was pegged. You know, it was not a good night. We never lost our heads completely, and that's what led to the good finish. So proud of that, but just not a night we expected to have, especially leaving happy hour as strong as we were. Then to start the race and we go in the wrong direction was frustrating, but I've always had that ability to keep my cool longer than others, but I still snap, and I've started to in the car late in the race.
Let's go with David and then Reed. Go ahead, David.
David Caravella, NASCAR.com. Jimmie, you've won here a couple times, and last year you probably had as miserable a night as you had all year. Last year, wrecking, 2 or 3 times or something like that. Does that just speak to sort of the nature of this place and how it can be so Jekyll and Hyde, and how even though you can have a pretty good record here, I mean, every night is different at this place?
Yeah, it is, and the speeds we run around here, it's really mind-boggling. And there's some tracks we go to where you don't feel like you're running 210, like at Michigan or California going into a corner, because there's so much room. It's so wide. But at this track, the sensation of speed is probably the highest at anywhere we go. And you look at the average lap time, or I think Greg Biffle at a tire test was like 206 into turn 3 here, which is just crazy to think about on a mile and a third track. So that leads to my point, which was the speeds are high, narrow racetrack. And last year, there were a few things that went on around me. Guys crashing, and I slid into the 56, I think, down here in 3 and 4, and a lot of other things went on. I think there was a wreck in front of us, and I got into the back of the 14 trying to, and I didn't get stopped in time. And then AJ had his brake issue going down the back straightaway, and I never saw him. It was like a missile coming out of the infield that hit me. So, yes, it was a miserable night. I think we would have been decent. We ran well up until then. But when things – it's always been this track, too. I mean, when things start working against you, or the lady starts working against you, it's over.
Okay, let's go Reed, Rusty, and Mike Neff.
Reed Spencer with Sporting News. Jimmie, you follow other sports as well as racing. In your mind, other than the $1 million to win first prize, what differentiates the All-Star event in NASCAR racing from All-Star events in other sports?
I'd have to say that the mindset of our All-Star event is a lot different than others. When you look at the Pro Bowl, you look at the baseball All-Star game, basketball's All-Star stuff. No one in our sport is really concerned about saving something or getting hurt or playing at 80% or whatever it may be. You hear that stuff all the time. You watch the Pro Bowl and the guys aren't hitting like they normally do. our series, the hits are actually probably worse and harder and stronger. I mean, so the intensity and the commitment for our All-Star event seems to be a lot higher than others. So that mindset is the difference to me. And, not to take anything away from those athletes, I should then say we're surrounded by a steel cage, so it's a lot easier for us to dish some stuff out and take some hits.
We'll go Reed, Rusty, Mike Neff. Go. Oh, Reed, I'll just ask that question. Okay, Kerry, Rusty, Mike Neff, and then Joe Menzer.
You're going to ask one?
No, I'm good. I've already asked you all my questions. Go ahead. Rusty, Mike Neff, Joe.
Rusty Ball and NASCAR Media Group. If I ask you to look ahead as well, from one tough oval to another, next week, Dover. You've had a lot of success there. You swept those races, I guess it was a few years ago. You just could talk about that track, and it's kind of been described as a roller coaster that's also self-cleaning. Yeah,
I mean, it's a fun racetrack. I think it's a track that really suits my style, and the stats show that. There's a certain rhythm there. I mean, you have to be comfortable with typically a loose race car into the corner. Then you got to figure out somehow to make it turn the center and then fight forward grip up off the corner to run a good lap there. The rubber, I understand we're going to go back on the same tire as what we had there in the fall, and that tire laid a lot of rubber down and caused a lot of handling issues for teams. So, and we did a good job of working around that. So I'm excited going back. I think that it'll be a strong race for the Lowe's team.
Mike Neff, Joe Menzer, then Tom Jensen. Go ahead.
Hey, Jimmy, Mike Neff from FrontStretch.com. You and Chad have won 5 championships together. You obviously work well, but you don't always see eye to eye. On a week like last week when you were starting to have a meltdown in the car, he kind of pushes your buttons sometimes. How much does it help you come back from that brink when he starts pushing those buttons and basically saying, get on the wheel and drive what you got?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, we're that environment, we forget that everyone is scanning and listening sometimes and, act like idiots and grade school kids at times. So it's always embarrassing, especially walking in the bus to see my wife post-race. Then friends at times will mention stuff, then always come back to the media center to be reminded of stuff I forgot about or wasn't informed of. But, it's tough. And it's the cool thing about our sport. Everyone can listen and hear what is really taking place and what's going on. And, a driver-crew chief relationship is one that is unique. It's a lot like a marriage in some ways, which we've all joked about and talked about. And you know how to push your wife's buttons. We all know how to push our spouse's buttons. So when it comes time in a race in driver-crew chief relationship, you can do the same. And then there's also buttons you can push to whip someone into shape. And all of that takes place. And Chad and I have done a good job over the years of not having complete meltdowns. I mean, we certainly have our moments, but we get right to the edge and then realize, hey, this isn't good for the team. We're going to give up a good finish. Or we shouldn't do any more damage than what we've already done. Let's get our heads on straight and go from there.